Since the early days of Christianity, Rome has been the center of the Christian faith. The two great apostles, Peter and Paul, came here to announce the good news and give their lives for the gospel. Consequently, throughout the centuries, Rome has been a destination of pilgrimage and a source of those seeking spiritual renewal. Secular leaders as well have frequently come to Rome to find a connection with the successor of St. Peter. But what exactly is it that attracts so many pilgrims, tourists, and world leaders? The answer is simple: the search for God and the beauty of Rome. Let's now join Father John Wauck in a spiritual pilgrimage to the Eternal City to discover its beauty and also the traces that God left right here on earth.
Behind me we can see the bridge called Ponte Sant'Angelo, which for many centuries was the only bridge that would take pilgrims coming from around Europe to St. Peter's Basilica. When you come to the bridge, you begin really a spiritual itinerary. It's designed to help you get into the spirit of a pilgrimage.
At the head of the bridge are the statues of the two apostles Peter and Paul. The patrons of the city welcome all pilgrims to enter the sacred center of the Eternal City.
Under St. Peter there's an inscription that says, "For the humble, here you will find pardon." And under St. Paul there's an inscription that says, "For the proud, retribution." And then after those statues you see a series of statues of angels who are carrying the instruments of the Passion, which were meant to remind the pilgrims that they were to approach the tomb of St. Peter with a spirit of contrition and also out of humility, aware of what Jesus had suffered for their redemption.
In 1667, Pope Clement IX entrusted Bernini, the famous artist, with the task of sculpting the angels for Ponte Sant'Angelo. Bernini accepted the offer and decided to create a living Via Crucis.
On the Ponte Sant'Angelo bridge, there's these angels that are carrying the symbols of the Passion, the instruments of the Passion of Jesus Christ. And they're designed to help people to reflect on all that Jesus Christ suffered in order to achieve the redemption of the human race.
The expressions on the angels' faces are different. Some of them look serene in the certainty of the resurrection of Jesus. Others instead seem to be full of compassion and pity.
So you see the cross, you see the crown of thorns, the nails that were used to nail Jesus to the cross. And people looking at those images, the sculpted images, were meant to recall the love that Christ had that led him to suffer and die on the cross. And frequently that meditation, that pious meditation on the sufferings of Christ, his passion, was also associated with pardon and indulgences as well.
Each one of the 10 angels holds an instrument of the Passion. This was one of Gian Lorenzo Bernini's ideas, namely to create a Via Crucis along which pilgrims could contemplate the instruments of the Passion.
The crown of thorns that was on Jesus' head, that entered into Christ's head, in a mockery of the kind of crown that a king would have worn. There's also the whip that was used to scourge Jesus Christ, the column against which he was supported while he was being scourged. There's an angel who's carrying the cross itself, that instrument upon which Jesus performed his great work, the feat of redeeming mankind.
In December 1669, 2 years after commissioning the work, Pope Clement IX inspected for the first time the Sant'Angelo bridge with the new statues. After seeing the angels, the Pope decided that 2 of Bernini's statues were too fine for the bridge, and he replaced them with copies. The original statues were eventually placed in the church of Sant'Andrea della Frate.
When pilgrims would come to Rome, above all, they'd want to see the tombs of St. Peter and St. Paul. The tomb of St. Peter, of course, is in St. Peter's Basilica, and it's surrounded by 3 great relics from the Passion of Christ. One is the cross itself being held by St. Helen, the other is the lance of the Roman centurion Longinus, and the third is the veil of Veronica that was displayed in St. Peter's every year.
Empress Helena, St. Constantine's mother, discovered the true cross in the early 4th century on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Besides the cross, she brought back to Rome with her other instruments of the Passion of Christ.
The instruments of the Passion of Christ in the tradition were frequently referred to as arma Christi, the arms of Christ. The arms, in this sense, were arms like on a heraldic coat of arms. They were symbols of something great that he had achieved, and also they were the weapons with which he had overcome Satan. And that was also an instrument, a way of recalling the greatness of what Jesus Christ had achieved.
According to tradition, these relics were placed in a new basilica in Rome constructed on soil from Jerusalem. Hence the name of the basilica, Basilica of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem. Several relics are displayed there nowadays. 2 thorns of the crown of thorns, part of the nail, the inscription INRI, the finger of St. Thomas, small wooden pieces of the true cross, and the cross of the good thief.
Of course, there were many other relics in Rome that people wanted to see. One of the most popular relics, if you want to think of it that way, was the Scala Santa, the Holy Stairs, which were the stairs of the Roman Praetorium of Pontius Pilate, where Jesus Christ walked down the stairs before going to die on the cross.
The Holy Stairs are a set of 28 white marble steps. They are located near the Basilica of St. John Lateran. In the past, this chapel was part of the old Papal Lateran Palace. The Holy Stairs lead to the personal chapel of the early popes.
The custom for pilgrims is to walk up those stairs on their knees. It's a sign of penance, but also it's a way of uniting ourselves with the Passion of Christ. That's what relics really are for. It's a way of entering into contact with these holy events. And it's a reminder that the Christian faith is a faith that's incarnational and historical.
Throughout history, relics have been objects of veneration, but they are also sometimes misunderstood, and once became involved in an internal division of the Church. The famous story of Martin Luther's consideration that the just shall live by faith happened right here on these stairs. After devoutly climbing these steps, he hurriedly left the place in shame and horror. He became terribly disappointed in the Catholic faith, the papacy, and relics.
The events of our salvation took place in this world, and we still have the tools, so to speak, of the redemption with us. We can look at them, we can touch them, we can honor them, show them veneration. And that's what the pilgrims were coming to do when they wanted to visit these relics in the great city of Rome.
Considering this bad experience, it is important to understand well that salvation does not come from external acts or gestures, but rather from contrition and penance. Redemption is the unity with the sufferings of Jesus and his glorious resurrection. After conquering death through death, the instruments of the Passion of Jesus became the arms of our salvation.